Harrison Ford said he was the only Indiana Jones, but Disney seems to disagree. New reports say that they're going to not only recast, but maybe even reboot Indiana Jones. Today we'll tell you what's going on with Lucasfilm and whether or not you should be excited or deeply, truly disturbed. Hello folks, and welcome back to the channel that continues to tell you what's going on with the relics of Hollywood. They should be in a museum. Folks, today we're going to tell you what's going down with Indiana Jones. We've had some scoops in the past, and they seem now to be lining up with the latest we're hearing. Plus, we have the true expert, nobody's better, Lorne Connor, here to break down what's going down with Indy. Click the like button, and here we go. All right, folks, take a look at this. Out of That Park Place, Indiana Jones reboot reportedly in development, Lucasfilm with new star taking over from Harrison Ford. Now, where did this come from? Originally, this comes from the Diz Insider. And in this article right here, folks, you can go read it if you'd like. It's by Skylar Schuler and says, hey, everyone, I know it's been a while, but as what happens to everyone, life gets in the way. We're back with the mailbag, yada, yada, yada. That then was, let's just say, sent out on the airwaves of the World of Real by Jordan Ruami, straight off ruining some of those who had tried to disprove him about Elio. It says Indiana Jones reboot planned at Lucasfilm. Says we all know to take online rumors with a grain of salt, but when it comes from the Diz Insider, the same outlet that correctly scooped The Incredibles 3 months before Disney confirmed it, it's worth paying attention. According to their latest report, Lucasfilm is quietly preparing to reboot the Indiana Jones franchise, but not before giving it a bit of breathing room. The studio is reportedly letting the IP rest for a bit before launching a full-scale reboot, with an official announcement possibly coming as early as next year's D23 Expo. Now, I would love to let you all just stick with that, maybe. Oh, wait, no, I want to go deeper if it's okay. Let's do that. The reason we've got That Park Place is because we know a little bit beyond what's being announced, so let's go down and let's pounce on it, shall we? First of all, we know that the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull did not do well. We also know that Dial of Destiny was worse. But folks, we here on the Pro Channel have been talking about this for a few, saying that we had heard 8 months ago that a young Indiana Jones concept was being worked on. Now we're getting this rumor out, and my question is, with Kathleen Kennedy probably dropping out of Lucasfilm real soon, somebody else taking over the helm, Lorne, do you now believe that maybe we're going to get a young Indy reboot? And would you like to explain to the audience, please, the difference in a reboot and a recast and why it really matters for Indy?
I think if they really mean that they're going to do a reboot, that it's dead on arrival. And there's lots of reasons for that. One is that if you're going to do remakes, you're never going to live up to the classics. If you're not going to do remakes, there's a very limited number of artifacts that can work for an indie story, because they have to be real in the sense that they are either real historical artifacts or at least have real precedent in a religious faith tradition of some kind. And there's precious few of those that actually work as a MacGuffin for these kind of stories. When they have done other indie spin-off products like the novels that I was talking about in the chat earlier with some people, they had to do more either made up stuff or things that were more from like the Arthurian tradition. Now you can kind of get away with that a little bit because that's where the Holy Grail comes from. But in any case, I think if you try and do a reboot, the audience won't accept it. Now, if you're going to try and go back and fill in gaps, that might work, but it's still a very risky play. An indie story is a much tougher nut to crack, I think, than something like Star Wars. I think indie is a very difficult thing to write. Now, if you're going to do it, I think there are a couple artifacts that you could still use that could work, but the casting is going to be absolutely crucial. And we were talking about that in the chat a little bit as well. A few years ago, there were rumors flying around that Chris Pratt was up for the job, and I think he could do it. But if you were going to do that, that's the only way that I think that a reboot would work. If you're going to try and put him into the established continuity, that doesn't work. Now, my take on it is that Disney, Lucasfilm need to get Anthony and Gruber under contract right now, because that's the guy that you want to slot in here because he is a dead ringer for Harrison Ford. And that way you could go either path. You could slot him in an earlier time period and fill in some of the gaps, or you could do the reboot. But I still think reboot is too risky. I wouldn't go for that.
All right, panel, what say you when it comes to this? And do you think it's true or not? I mean, there's a lot of smoke here. Maybe there is a fire.
Are we all overlooking Alden Ehrenreich?
Have at it. Tell us about him.
He was young Han Solo. Let's just make him young Indiana Jones.
Oh, that didn't work out the first time, though. Marvin, that's the thing.
Yeah,
And
you know what? He just hasn't hit his stride yet, Vash.
well,
I haven't heard his stride
He
anywhere.
was so good in Ironheart.
I have somebody who I think would make for the perfect potential Indiana Jones.
I'm not interested.
No!
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
He's
there's
bringing
that.
the sizzle.
It's time for my summer sizzle. Cool as a cherry popsicle. And don't hold back, get ready to stun. Fun, fun, fun for everyone.
Marvin, get the dance going, man. Sizzle for us. There you go. Getting the sizzle on. Okay. Seriously, though. Let's talk about top contenders who could play Indy. And I guess before we do that, is it offensive to Harrison Ford? He said he's the only Indy. We hope that Harrison is still with us for years and years and years to come.
Who cares?
Beforehand, I would have said so, but then he made Dial of Destiny, and that renders his opinion moot at this point.
Yep.
That's big coming from you, Lauren, and I unfortunately have to agree. It's a horrible movie, and he was part of the creative process.
Let's also not forget this is the Walt Disney Company we're dealing with here, so they'll find an excuse to, buy his likeness from his family after he's passed on, so they can either make him a robot or just AI him throughout the whole movie if the technology gets better. They'll find a way.
Well, okay, that's an option. Do they? I mean, I don't think they're going to do this. Let me just say, I don't think they're going to do this. But should they get somebody who looks like Harrison Ford? And they're using AI to make James Earl Jones always be in Star Wars. Should Harrison's face always be Indy's?
I don't think that necessarily has to be the case, but it does have to be someone that actually looks the part. In the same way that, like with James Bond, you want a consistent kind of a character. But
Does
at least with James
Chris
Bond,
Pratt look close enough, Steve?
no, do not. Okay, Chris Pratt needs to be in less things. We need to be. Yeah, no, he cannot.
Well, who
be-
do you want? You want Timothy Chalamet? Who you want?
No, I don't. I want to
That made culture flee.
find someone that's like building
Tom
a
Holland.
set. Building a set.
You want a
Family.
carpenter?
Yeah, find a guy that's building a set, and you're just like, we should give him a chance.
Maybe a guy who was in a small production about vintage cars. Maybe
What? Tim Allen?
American Graffiti. No. Oh.
I don't know. No, I have no idea. I have no idea of a casting choice. My thing would be they need to look the part, but they cannot be Harrison Ford. They need to be their own person that they know how to capture the spirit. But again, what we've seen is Disney doesn't know how to do that. So all you're going to do is you're going to get someone that, again, they're just going to insert the modern values into a Indiana Jones flick, and it's going to be dumb. So
Cynthia Erivo.
there you go.
Lauren, you're not against Chris Pratt, though.
I'm not. I actually think that he could do a pretty good job in the part, but I think you do have to have somebody who can embody Harrison Ford if you're not going the reboot route. Because if you're going to slot them in an earlier time period and fill in the gaps, then you don't want to have Harrison Ford, then not Harrison Ford, and then Harrison Ford again. I see it as not young Indiana Jones, which we were talking about in the chat a little bit as well. That's already been done by Sean Patrick Flannery. I see it as younger Indiana Jones. So we're talking post Last Crusade, pre-Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. This would be filling in that gap between, say, 1940 and 1957.
And you're definitively against them going into late teenage or mid-teenage Indy.
I would be, yes. I don't think that's a good idea.
And the only way it would work would be with River Phoenix, who's dead.
Well,
So-
yep, being dead would be probably exclusionary to the role.
Yeah, no, look, I don't like this idea. I didn't like the suggestion by somebody else that we could put, Pedro Peepaw energy into Indy. I don't think that doesn't work. Vash and I are going to have words later.
I don't agree with the decision.
Okay, but
Don't let him peer pressure you out, Vash. You want Peepaw, you have Peepaw, okay? We're not
No,
going to judge you.
You know who I
During
kind
the
of
show.
want?
After the show is different. What?
Who do you want exactly?
I would have never advocated for this up until F1, and now seeing him in F1, and also too,
You're right, Brad
Once
Pitt.
Upon a Time in Hollywood. Brad Pitt, an older one, could actually work. As crazy as that sounds, I know Lauren is like, "Whoa, what is that's crazy?"
No. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is Indy. 5'3" Tom Cruise is Indiana Jones.
Yeah, I don't think that works. But
what's
Brad
that
Pitt has.
What's that Aaron Reich? What is that guy's name? Yeah.
Alden Ehrenreich.
Yeah,
And
I think-
actually, go ahead. Sorry.
No, please go. You're the expert. I'm just here saying, yeah, I don't want Peepaw.
I know people didn't like Ehrenreich in Solo because he wasn't Harrison Ford, but I argue he's not supposed to be at that point. And there
Right,
are
true.
scenes in Solo where there's one or two where suddenly he nails Solo. And there's a couple of scenes that kind of made me go, whoa, where did that come from? And I think that was a deliberate choice on their part because they didn't think this was going to be just one movie. They thought it was going to be more.
Well-
And he was playing it so that he could evolve into the Han that we knew.
Okay, but here's the problem, and Lauren, you know this already. We got two different filmmakers making a film with incongruencies.
Yes.
And I would say that, if anybody could do it, it would be him or that other fellow that they got to play Luke in the, terrible Star Wars show. The hell was that? Grogu in a pie of something?
I actually think that Alden could be in the running. I think it's unfortunate that his career hasn't taken off the way that I think it should. Somebody in the chat mentioned his role in Hail Caesar, and I completely agree. He's great in Hail Caesar. I think it's unfortunate the way Solo turned out. I like it, but it has big problems, and there's a whole lot that I would cut out of that movie and redo. I would have liked to have seen a sequel because I think that it could have turned into something that really would have been special. It's just it came out at the wrong time and it had too much of the woke stuff in it, and that marred it.
Let me push the conversation in a final direction as we get ready to wrap this particular segment, and then we're going to go to some Q&As for Lauren.
Ooh.
I am totally against them rebooting or recasting or remaking or retrying Indiana Jones at this time. And the reason for that is I have not seen a single thing that Lucasfilm has done that I thought had broad audience appeal that recaptured the magic. Now, we could talk about some things that have done well enough, like pockets of success, brief pockets of success, but we've also seen them just destroy their franchises. So I would rather wait 5-10 years, whatever it takes, until we've got some level of assurance that there's competency back at Lucasfilm, if that's ever going to happen. And if not, then I want it to be handed off to somebody completely different than Lucasfilm.
The problem, though, is that, these Disney executives can't wait. I mean, I think when they bought Lucasfilm, they felt it was overvalued, so they're trying to extract all the value that they can out of it. Star Wars is sputtered and stalled, so can we go in Indiana Jones' direction? I think from a studio executive standpoint, it makes sense that you would want to, dive into this franchise and get value out of it. The problem, though, is that nobody, like you said, Pro, is equipped to handle this specific franchise. Nobody. They couldn't do Solo. They can't do Indiana Jones. Go ahead, Soldier.
Especially Indiana Jones. Look, they fumbled a dinosaur movie. I don't really think any of you out there know the extent with which the intermingling of Jurassic Park and Lucasfilm exists. It is a Marshall Kennedy production for this stupid Jurassic garbage film that people are saying positive things about. Kanan, I love you, dude,
What does
no.
this have? What does this have
no,
to do with
hang on.
Indy?
Well,
You're
it
obsessed,
has
man. You're obsessed.
everything to do with Indy because it's Lucasfilm. Lucasfilm did everything in the production of
Lucasfilm
this.
doesn't make Jurassic World or Park. What are you talking
Frank
about?
Marshall, but Frank Marshall is producing.
Watch,
Oh, no, wait a minute.
Watch.
Wait a minute. I am feeling it now, folks. I think culture's onto something.
I am. Look, I'm going to tell you right now, if you are Universal, you made a deal with the devil because you allowed for the Marshall Kennedy production company to bring Lucasfilm into this glorious disaster of Girl Boss versus boring dinosaur stuff.
The Kennedy Marshall production company is a real thing.
That's what I
I'm looking at this
said.
right now.
I
Kennedy
feel like-
Marshall Company. That's responsible for Jurassic World Rebirth. Culture's right.
I feel like culture needs a Karl Rove dry erase marker where he could, or dry erase board where he could point out all the connections here and how ultimately, Indiana Jones and Jurassic World, as you call it, Afterbirth, are both going to fail because of Kathleen Kennedy.
It's going to be just, go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, a more important question than any of this is, Lauren, what would be the item that they need to use for this theoretical Indiana Jones?
This is why it gets tough. And
Oh, shut up! You know the answer already.
No,
Come
well,
on.
I do, but what I'm making my point here is that I tend to get annoyed by a lot of the comic books and a lot of the novels and things because they're using things that are made up, and traditionally Jones's artifacts are based on something that is either real historically or at least has some kind of an entry into a religious tradition. Personally, I think there's only a couple of things that can work. I think if you were still doing old Indy, they should have capped it off on the Garden of Eden. I think something that could be interesting for the war years, say 40 to 45, would be the Horns of Jericho. I think that you could have some fun with something like that.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
What about the Holy Lance?
Well, they've already kind of done it. If you accept Dial of Destiny, it was a fake, but it did appear.
Now,
What are they trying to bring down with the Horns of Jericho?
All right, so it would be
The
Nazi
the WWE, dude. Come on.
So let me give you my pitch because I had an idea way back when they were talking about doing Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. They had not revealed what the artifact was going to be, but they did say what the time period was. We knew it was going to be in the Cold War. And what I thought would have been interesting is that you have the Lance of Longinus, the Spear of Destiny, and the legend that's associated with that is that any army that holds the spear in front of it is invincible. Now, as it happens, in real history, the spear was supposedly in the Habsburg Museum in Austria. Actually had it in his possession, and it was kept on a train, which they used in Dial of Destiny. The Allies recovered it, but after the war, Berlin was under the control of the Russians. And so I thought it would be interesting if the Russians took the Spear of Destiny. And then you have the Ark of the Covenant in the possession of the United States, which is also an artifact that if an army holds it before it, that they're invincible. So what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? I saw this as like the nuclear arms race between the United States and the Russians, only with religious artifacts. And I thought the interesting thing that you could do with that is have a female Russian spy or government official who does not think that the Russians should have this in their possession come to the United States, warn Indy that they have it, and they both have to recover their government's respective artifacts and lose them so that they can't be used as supernatural weapons in a Cold War.
That's $1 billion movie.
That's what I would have done back then. So anyway, that would be my pitch.
All right, well, folks, we'll leave it there because that's great. Lucasfilm, don't steal it from Lauren. Hire this man and still let him be on the pro show. Put this baby to bed. This video is over. Turn off the lights, but not quite yet, folks, because we do ask one final thing before we say goodbye, and that is, would you consider clicking the like button? Share, subscribe, click it and stick it to those algorithms. It is the notification bell, and drop a comment down below. Also greatly appreciated, anytime you would like to share this out on your favorite social media platforms, well, we would love that. And we'd also love to hear your thoughts. Folks, drop a comment down below and use that beautiful mind of yours. If you would not mind, we'd love to know what you're thinking. Also, if you would like to become a member of the channel, it's as simple as clicking the join button. It is the price of a soda per month, and you'll gain access to all kinds of new, cool, exclusive information. Folks, until the next time we have the honor of spending time with you, keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
Why listen to music made by people and companies who really don't like you? Check out Vacation Radio today and prepare for all new content made by the people behind the WDW Pro channel. It's the place you need for all the music. That should be fun. Hundreds of songs, every genre you can imagine. Listen live on YouTube and enjoy a set list that's always sunny. It's Vacation Radio. What are you waiting for? Every WDW Pro video has a link to Vacation Radio in the video description. Try it out and subscribe today.